They're secretly watching you, but not texting. This is what it really means. Stoic life lessons. Stoicism. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca. Have you ever felt someone's presence, even when they've been silent for weeks or months? You sense it. They're still watching, still checking, but never texting. Not because they don't care, but because their pride won't let them. They'd rather stay in the shadows than admit they miss you. But what they don't realize is that your silence is breaking them. Every moment you don't reach out forces them to confront a truth they can't handle. They need you more than you need them. This isn't just about mind games. It's about power, self-control, and detachment. In this video, we'll break down why they're watching but not texting, and how Stoicism teaches you to reclaim your strength without lifting a finger. Drop this in the comments. My silence speaks louder than their words. If you're ready to take back your power, let's begin. Number 1. They pretend to forget you, but they're watching everything. They pretend you're just another chapter they've closed, a story they no longer care to revisit, but deep down, you remain the unfinished book they can't stop rereading. They act indifferent, flooding their social media with pictures of forced laughter, curated moments of so-called happiness, and staged proof that they've moved on. But behind that facade lies the undeniable truth. They're still watching. They may not double-tap your photos or rush to view your stories, but don't be fooled. They lurk in silence, refreshing your page when no one's looking, unable to resist the pull of their own curiosity. Why? Because what is truly forgotten is left behind, ignored, erased. Yet here they are, pretending you don't exist while keeping you under surveillance. In Stoic life lessons, we learn that true power is found in indifference, in mastering the art of not reacting. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Meaning, if they expect you to pine, to seek closure, to make noise, do the opposite. Your silence, your ability to move forward without validation, is what unsettles them the most. What keeps them hooked isn't what you're sharing, it's what you're concealing. Every new photo, every moment you live without them, every day you refuse to break the silence, it chips away at their illusion of control. They want to see proof that you're still affected, that you still ache in the way they secretly hope. But the moment you stop giving them that satisfaction, the moment you let them wonder, is the moment the balance of power shifts. This is the essence of what is Stoicism, mastering yourself, your emotions, your responses. Instead of reacting, you observe. Instead of proving, you evolve. Instead of chasing, you rise. Because the truth is, people don't watch what doesn't matter to them. They don't obsess over what they have genuinely outgrown. So, if they're still monitoring you even from the shadows, it's because you represent something unresolved. Whether it's regret, unspoken words, or a future they once believed was guaranteed. And that, in itself, is proof of your value. Epictetus once said, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" This wisdom applies here as well. When they claim to be over you, when they act as if you're nothing more than a distant memory, understand this: they are merely ignorant of the weight you still hold in their mind. The more silent you remain, the louder their thoughts become. They will assume, they will overanalyze, they will fill in the blanks with worst-case scenarios. Is he happier without me? Has he found someone better? Did I make a mistake? And the longer they are left in the dark, the more tormenting these questions become. But your mission isn't to seek revenge, nor is it to prove a point. Your mission is to elevate. Stoic life lessons teach us that true strength isn't found in control over others, but in control over oneself. They expected you to react, to chase, to confirm their importance in your life. But instead, you detach. You shift your focus inward. You improve not for them, but for yourself. And in doing so, you become the mystery they will never solve. Because the most powerful response isn't a cleverly worded post, a subliminal message, or a display of superficial happiness. It's absence. The absence of needing their attention, their approval, their recognition. This is what Stoicism embodies. The ability to walk away without looking back, to find peace in the unknown, to let go without bitterness. So let them pretend, let them craft their narratives, let them drown in their own assumptions. Meanwhile, you move forward, not with resentment, but with wisdom. Not with anger, but with composure. Not with regret, but with certainty that your greatest power is the one thing they will never figure out. If you've ever found yourself wondering why they still watch, why they still lurk in the shadows of your life, remember this: they are bound by the weight of their own uncertainty, while you are free. And that is the ultimate victory. Number 2. Why they're watching but not reaching out. They're watching but not reaching out because their pride is the only thing standing between their heart and their phone. They care, that's why their eyes are on you, but caring and acting on those feelings are two different battles. Reaching out would mean admitting they were wrong, lowering the pedestal they built for themselves, and surrendering the control they once had over you. And for someone whose ego has always come first, that apology weighs more than the silence they hide behind. They're not watching because they admire your happiness. They're watching to see if you're still broken. They want to believe you're stuck in the past, replaying old memories the way they secretly do. But what terrifies them is the thought that you're not suffering at all. That fear is what keeps them glued to your updates while pretending they've moved on. Stoicism today teaches us that the true measure of control isn't found in manipulating others, it's in mastering ourselves. Psychology says that when someone watches you in silence, it's because they're emotionally attached, but too stubborn to admit it. They want to believe you're still under their spell, but every moment you remain silent reminds them the spell is breaking. They don't text because the moment they do, they risk exposing their own vulnerability. They fear not just your rejection, but the realization that they are no longer as important in your life as they once assumed. Think about it. How often do people let pride sabotage something they secretly want? Maybe you've seen it in your own life. An old friend who drifts away but keeps tabs on you. A co-worker who resents you but mimics your success. An ex who won't acknowledge their mistakes, yet lingers in the shadows of your digital world. The longer they wait to reach out, the harder it becomes. Pride builds walls between emotions and actions, and with each day of silence, they convince themselves that the bridge is too burned to cross. And yet they still watch. Every time they check your page without messaging, they let regret carve deeper into them. Because deep down they know, someone who truly doesn't care wouldn't keep looking back. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That means you don't need to block them, you don't need to post cryptic messages or prove anything. The best revenge isn't anger, it's evolution. It's becoming someone they no longer have access to, someone they underestimated, someone they lost without even realizing when. You see, a stoic mindset isn't about playing games or feeding your ego. It's about learning the power of self-control. You don't need to react to their silence, because your growth speaks louder than any response ever could. They broke you, expecting you would always be there, waiting to be fixed. But now, your silence is sending them a message clearer than any words ever could. You are not waiting, you are rising. The strongest statement you can make is to live well, not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. Number 3. Their silence isn't strength, it's a mask. Their silence isn't strength, it's a mask, a fragile shield their ego uses to protect itself from the one thing they fear the most: regret. When they walked away, they convinced themselves they were making the right choice, that you would be the one left in the dark, suffering in silence, waiting, hoping, breaking. But what they never saw coming was your silence fighting back. At first, they told themselves you were just playing a game, staying quiet to get their attention, making them chase, trying to manipulate them into missing you. That's why they lurk in the shadows, watching in secret, waiting for a crack in your armor. They expect to see that one sad post, that one cryptic quote, that one sign that you're still holding on. But when they find nothing, when your page gives them no validation, no proof of your suffering, the game flips, and suddenly the silence they once used as a weapon is now being turned against them. Curiosity creeps in. Why aren't you chasing? Why aren't you proving your pain? Why aren't you giving them the satisfaction of knowing they still matter? That's when frustration starts simmering beneath the surface. Because the same person they thought would always fight for them, always be there, always show some kind of weakness, is now giving them nothing. And the hardest pill to swallow? Silence hurts, more than any message ever could. You see, people expect closure to come from words, from explanations, from conversations where they get to justify their choices. But when they get nothing, when you give them nothing, they are left with only their own thoughts, and that is a battlefield they never prepared for. That frustration turns into something even more dangerous: fear. Fear that you're really moving on. Fear that they're no longer the center of your world. Fear that maybe, just maybe, they mattered more to you than you ever mattered to them. And that's the moment their pride begins whispering in their ear, "Don't text first. They'll come back." They convince themselves you're just being stubborn, that eventually you'll break, that one day they'll check their phone and see your name lighting up their screen, proving to them that they were right all along. But every day that passes without a message from you, without even a hint of longing, that whisper gets quieter and the weight of regret grows heavier. This is the battle happening inside their mind every single day, the battle between pride and regret, between control and longing. They can't reach out without shattering their ego, but the longer they stay silent, the deeper the suffering becomes. And here's the harsh reality: most will choose to suffer rather than face themselves, because facing their own reflection, admitting they were wrong, swallowing their pride, that is harder than losing you. High-value men understand this. Stoic teaches that true power lies in self-control, in not reacting, in allowing others to bear the weight of their own decisions. When you learn to master your silence, you shift the dynamic. You force them to sit with the version of themselves they spent the entire relationship running from. The version that thought you'd never leave. The version that took your loyalty for granted. The version that assumed they would always have a way back to you. But now, your silence has created a distance they never expected, and the question is, will their ego allow them to cross it? Or will they choose to sit in the prison of their own stubbornness, knowing they lost something they will never find again? That's no longer your problem, because while they sit in regret, you rise in power. While they hesitate, you evolve. While they wait for a sign, you prove through your actions that you were never waiting at all. Seneca once said, "It is a great thing to know the season for speech and the season for silence." And now, your silence is speaking louder than words ever could. It's teaching them the lesson they refused to learn while you were present. that you were never theirs to lose, you were only theirs to appreciate, and once they failed to do that, their fate was sealed. If you've made it this far, you're already mastering the power of silence. Drop a comment saying, "I'm not waiting, I'm rising," to show you're committed to self-growth and inner strength. Stay tuned, your greatest transformation is just beginning. Number 4. How you can feel they're watching. When someone silently watches you, when they scroll through your pictures, type your name into the search bar, or replay old conversations in their head, they are unknowingly creating an invisible tether between you. Even without direct contact, their thoughts send out signals, and if you've ever suddenly felt their presence, it's because you are unconsciously picking up on those signals. Stoic life lessons teach us that the mind is a powerful force, and what we give attention to, we strengthen. The bond between two people does not break the moment communication stops. It breaks when one person stops feeding it. This is why you may still feel waves of missing them out of nowhere. You wake up with them on your mind. You dream of them trying to talk to you, and despite your best efforts to move forward, their presence lingers in your thoughts like an echo of the past. But here's the truth. You are not feeling them because you still love them. You are feeling them because they still have an emotional hold on you, and that hold exists because they are still watching. They are still attached, but they lack the courage to admit it. They are feeding the connection in silence, hoping that their energy alone will be enough to keep them relevant in your life. However, here's the secret they don't want you to know. You have the power to break the chain. Every time you miss them, every time you feel their presence, it is because they are pulling on your energy. But every time you choose not to react, every time you refuse to engage in their silent pull, you are reclaiming your power. The fastest way to sever this energetic tie is to starve it completely. Stop checking their page, stop replaying old conversations, and stop looking for signs that they are still watching. Because the truth is, whether they are watching or not is irrelevant. What matters is that you no longer care. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you take control of your focus, when you decide that your energy belongs to you and not to a ghost of the past, the connection weakens. It doesn't happen overnight, but with each passing day of indifference, the weight they once had on you fades, until one morning you wake up and realize you don't feel them at all. The best revenge is emotional freedom. When you fully release someone from your mind, they feel it. They may not understand it, they may not even recognize it immediately, but deep down they sense the shift, and nothing will haunt them more than the realization that you have let go, without needing to say a single word. Because what is Stoicism if not the art of discipline, of choosing inner peace over external validation? The moment you stop seeking closure, stop waiting for an apology, stop engaging in the push and pull of attachment, you become untouchable. They expected you to hold on. They assumed they would always linger somewhere in your mind, that they could continue to watch you in silence while maintaining control over your emotions. But when they realize you have freed yourself, when they sense that their presence no longer lingers in your thoughts, that is when they will feel the true weight of their loss. You are not bound by them anymore, and that freedom, that lightness of being, is something no amount of watching from afar can ever take away from you. So, let them feel the void of your absence. Let them sit with their own regrets. And while they watch, wondering if they still matter, you will continue forward, proving that they never really did. Number 5. What their silence is really saying. Their silence isn't rejection, it's confirmation. Confirmation that you were always stronger than they gave you credit for. Confirmation that you're no longer the person they could control. And confirmation that their absence doesn't shake you the way they expected. People break what they assume will always fix itself. They walk away from what they believe will always be waiting. And that's the trap. They're not silent because they don't care. They're silent because they're testing how much power they still have over you. They want to know if you'll break first, if you'll reach out, if you'll prove them right, that no matter how they treated you, you'd still come running back just to feel close to them again. Stoic principles teach that true power isn't in proving anything to anyone. It's in knowing you don't have to. The moment you refuse to play their game, their silence starts speaking louder than any words they could ever text you. Every second you hold back from reaching out sends a message without you typing a single word. Silence says, I don't need you. Silence says, I'm not chasing you. Silence says, I'm becoming someone you'll regret losing. Because what they're truly waiting for isn't just a message. They're waiting for proof that they still have a hold on you. But when that message never comes, when your silence continues to stretch out day after day, their ego starts to crumble, piece by piece. High-value men don't seek validation from those who chose to walk away. They understand that their worth was never dependent on someone else's recognition. The truth is, their silence isn't confidence, it's fear. Fear that you're stronger without them. Fear that you're rebuilding yourself into someone they will never have access to again. Fear that, for the first time, you see yourself the way you always should have. And that fear is louder than any excuse they tell themselves. Most people would rather suffer in silence than face the guilt of knowing they lost someone who would have done anything to keep them. And your silence is forcing them to live with the reality they tried to avoid, that they were never as important to you as they convinced themselves they were. Why haven't they reached out? Because deep down, the thought of being ignored by you scares them more than the pain of missing you. Their silence is a shield, a way to protect themselves from facing the possibility that you've already moved on. And the longer you stay silent, the more that fear eats away at them. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to be loved, love yourself first." And that's what this moment is about. Loving yourself more than they ever did, valuing yourself in a way they never could, and realizing that the most powerful thing you can ever say is nothing at all. Let them wrestle with their silence. Let them sit in their pride while you move forward in strength. Because the person who wins in the end isn't the one who texts first. It's the one who no longer cares if a text ever comes. Number 6, should you text them first? No. The answer is always no. If they cared enough, they'd find a way. If they missed you enough, their pride wouldn't hold them back. Love doesn't hide behind silence. Real emotions break through ego. The only reason you're even thinking about texting them first is because they trained you to always be the one who fixes things, to be the one who reaches out, who mends what they were willing to break. But not this time, not anymore. Every time you break your silence, you're handing them back the power they threw away. You're telling them they were right to walk away, that you're still waiting, that they can return whenever they please. But the truth is, Stoicism today teaches us that anyone who made you question your worth never deserved to have you in the first place. If they truly wanted to talk to you, nothing would stop them. Not pride, not fear, not ego. People fight for what they value. When you text first, you remove the need for them to prove anything. And that's why the only message they deserve is your absence. Let your silence remind them of everything they took for granted. Let your distance become the lesson they never saw coming. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how people only seem to appreciate what they had once they can no longer reach it? This isn't just about relationships, It's about life. The job that let you go and suddenly realized they lost a dedicated worker, the friend who drifted away, only to come back when they needed something. The person who thought they could replace you, only to learn that not everyone brings the same energy, loyalty, or love. People wake up when it's too late, not because they didn't know your value before, but because they assumed you'd always be there. That's why the hardest thing you'll ever do is stay silent when your heart wants to explain. You want to tell them how they hurt you, how you deserved more, how you would have given them everything if they had just valued you the way you valued them. But the most powerful thing you'll ever do is let them wonder if they ever mattered enough to break your silence. And that is a lesson that will echo louder than any words ever could. Marcus Aurelius once said, "A person's worth is measured by the worth of what they value. If they valued your love, they'd reach out. If they valued your presence, they'd swallow their pride. And if they don't, then that tells you everything you need to know. Your silence isn't stubbornness, it's strength. It's self-respect. It's a declaration that you will not beg for someone to recognize your worth. Because the moment you stop proving, stop chasing, stop trying to force someone to see your value, is the moment you rise into stoic happiness. You shift from someone waiting to be chosen to someone who knows their worth is non-negotiable. The truth is, if they cared, they'd be here. If they saw your value, they'd be showing it. Let them feel your absence until they realize how much your presence actually meant. And if they never do, then they were never meant to have access to you in the first place. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I will never beg someone to realize my worth. Number 7. What happens if you stay silent? If you stay silent long enough, two things will happen. They will break, and you will heal. At first, they will dismiss your silence as temporary, convincing themselves it's just another game, a tactic to make them miss you. But the longer you stay quiet, the more that silence weighs on them. What began as confidence on their end will slowly unravel into confusion. Confusion will breed doubt. Doubt will turn into regret, and regret, once it takes hold, is impossible to ignore. Every single day that you don't reach out chips away at their illusion of control. They expected you to break first, to chase, to remind them that they still matter. But instead, your silence is doing something far more powerful. It is forcing them to experience life without your energy holding them together. The absence of your presence becomes the loudest message you could ever send, and without even saying a word, you are teaching them a lesson they never saw coming. But here's the truth. The real transformation isn't what happens to them, it's what happens to you. Every moment you hold your silence, you start to reclaim the power you once gave away so freely. You begin to see how much of yourself you invested in someone who thought you would always be there. Each day of silence strengthens you. You start waking up without checking your phone, without wondering if they noticed your absence, without feeling the need to prove anything. You begin smiling without needing their validation, feeling lighter as you detach from the weight of someone who never valued you the way you deserved. And then one day, you realize something profound. The version of you that once begged for their attention, for their love, for their recognition, that version is gone. It no longer exists. You have outgrown the need for external approval, and that is when true freedom begins. Stoic life lessons teach us that true power lies in emotional control, the ability to remain unmoved, to resist the urge to react, to stand firm in your self-worth. This is the ultimate display of strength. What is Stoicism if not the practice of mastering oneself rather than being controlled by external forces? Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Silence is not weakness. It is a weapon of self-discipline, a signal to yourself and the world that you do not need validation from those who failed to see your value. When you master your silence, you master your emotions. And when you master your emotions, you become untouchable. And by the time they finally gather the courage to text you, because they will, once the weight of your absence becomes unbearable, you will be too far ahead, too deep in your own growth, too busy becoming the person they always feared you'd become without them. The greatest power is in rebuilding in private, away from the eyes that once took you for granted. Let them sit in their regret while you rise in your self-worth. Let them wonder if they ever mattered enough to break your silence. And when they finally realize what they lost, let them understand that you are no longer waiting to be found. Personal growth and happiness come from within, not from seeking validation from those who fail to appreciate you. Stoic life lessons teach us that true power lies in mastering our emotions, not reacting to those who try to test our worth. Silence is not just a response, it's a statement of strength, a path to peace, and a declaration that you are no longer waiting to be chosen. The moment you stop chasing and start focusing on yourself is the moment you truly rise. So ask yourself, are you holding on to someone who has already let go, or are you ready to embrace the freedom that comes with self-respect? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know how Stoicism Today has helped you navigate difficult situations. And if this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to Win Stoic for more insights on personal growth, self-discipline, and resilience. Because the best transformation doesn't come from proving anything. It comes from evolving in silence. Let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them regret. Silence is an art. They say silence is golden. But in a world that never stops talking, is it really? We live in an age of constant noise. Social media debates, news cycles that never end, voices demanding to be heard. Yet amidst all this, silence remains one of the most powerful, yet underrated forces. Silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a statement, a strategy, even a weapon when used wisely. There are times when words can heal, unite, or inspire. But there are also moments when staying silent speaks louder than anything we could say. Like a sword, words should be wielded with precision, because once spoken, they cannot be unsaid. So, when is silence truly golden, and when does it become a missed opportunity? Let's explore the art of silence, when to hold back, when to speak up, and why mastering both is the key to wisdom. 1. When others are sad or suffering. In a world that constantly demands words, where opinions flood every conversation and silence is often mistaken for indifference, the ability to remain silent in the presence of suffering is a true mark of wisdom. When others are sad, grieving, or struggling, the greatest gift we can offer is not a flood of advice or an attempt to fix things, but simply our presence, wordless, steady, and understanding. As Seneca wisely stated, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. A Stoic life lesson teaches us that wisdom often lies in restraint, in the ability to hold space for another without feeling the need to fill the void with unnecessary words. It is not our eloquence that heals, but our willingness to be present without judgment or distraction. Modern society, driven by social media, has conditioned us to believe that immediate responses are required, that every situation demands a reaction, that silence is awkward or even cold. But in truth, silence, when given with sincerity, can be the most powerful expression of empathy. When a loved one suffers a loss, when a friend faces hardship, or when a colleague experiences failure, we often search for the right words, fearing that silence will be misinterpreted. Yet, in many cases, words can feel empty, rehearsed, or even dismissive of the depth of their pain. What truly matters is the unspoken acknowledgement, the quiet nod, the comforting hand on a shoulder, the shared stillness that says, "I am here with you." The Stoics understood this deeply, for they believed that suffering is an inevitable part of life. And rather than resisting it or rushing to erase it with shallow reassurances, we should allow it to unfold naturally. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. Strength is not in trying to erase another's grief, but in respecting it, in standing firm in the storm without the compulsion to control it. In life, we are often quick to speak, to offer solutions, to inject our own experiences into another's moment of hardship. What is Stoicism if not the ability to control oneself, to act with wisdom rather than impulse? Practicing silence in moments of grief is not about detachment or coldness, it is about offering respect. The respect to let another feel their pain without interference. The respect to listen without rushing to respond. The respect to understand that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply be there. It is a reminder that not all wounds need words to heal, and that sometimes, in the vast quiet between two souls, the deepest understanding is formed. 2. When others are engaged in deep thought. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the space where true thought takes shape, where ideas transform into wisdom, and where the deepest understanding emerges. In a world that constantly demands attention, where notifications, conversations, and background noise never seem to fade, silence has become a rare and undervalued treasure. Yet, it is in silence that the greatest minds have flourished and the most profound breakthroughs have been made. Goethe once said, "Talent develops in solitude." And this truth remains unchanged, even in our modern, hyper-connected world. When someone is lost in deep thought, when their mind is constructing something meaningful, whether it be an idea, a solution, or an artistic creation, the greatest respect we can offer is space, uninterrupted, unburdened, and undisturbed. Some of the most impactful innovations in technology, philanthropy, and business were born from these periods of deep, undistracted thought. What if we granted ourselves and others that same courtesy? How often do we allow someone the peace to think without interruption? How often do we silence our own surroundings to truly reflect on what matters? The Stoic mindset teaches us that clarity comes not from reacting to every stimulus, but from pausing, stepping back, and allowing thought to settle before we act. Seneca, a master of Stoic happiness, reminds us, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." How much of that suffering could be eased if we simply gave ourselves the time to think clearly? The problem today is that deep thinking is often mistaken for disengagement, that quiet contemplation is seen as inactivity. But the truth is, those who master the art of silence are often the ones who shape the world. Stoicism today reminds us that wisdom comes not from speaking, but from listening, from observing, and from allowing ideas to take root before they are expressed. If we constantly intrude on moments of deep thought, our own or others, we disrupt the very process that leads to insight, growth, and creativity. 3. When others fail to understand you. There will be times in life when people just don't understand you, your thoughts, your choices, your beliefs. You may try to explain yourself, to offer clarity, to bridge the gap with patience and openness. But sometimes, no matter how carefully you choose your words, understanding remains out of reach. In these moments, you must ask yourself, is it worth the effort, or is silence the wiser path? Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue, the Stoics remind us. Words once spoken cannot be taken back, and when met with resistance or misunderstanding, they often do more harm than good. Stoic teaches us that a high-value man does not waste his energy trying to convince those who are unwilling to listen. Instead, he knows the power of restraint, of speaking only when it serves a purpose, and of letting silence communicate what words cannot. You are not responsible for making everyone understand you. True wisdom lies in recognizing when to speak and when to remain silent. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." If your actions, your integrity, and your principles are clear, the right people will understand, not through your words, but through your example. In life, this lesson is even more critical. In a world where opinions are constantly being thrown around, where everyone seems eager to prove their point, silence is an underutilized strength. Social media, for example, is filled with endless debates, misunderstandings, and conflicts that could have been avoided with a simple pause. How often do we see people arguing not to understand, but simply to be right? The high-value man does not engage in futile battles. He does not seek validation from those who will never give it. Instead, he carries himself with quiet confidence, understanding that respect is earned not through endless explanations, but through consistent, unwavering action. If your message is met with resistance, step back. Let silence do its work, because in that silence you assert your strength. In that silence, you create space for clarity, for dignity, and for peace. And most importantly, in that silence, you free yourself from the need to be understood by everyone, knowing that those who truly matter will already understand. 4. When you are misunderstood. Being misunderstood is one of life's greatest frustrations, but how you respond to it determines your strength, your wisdom, and ultimately your peace. There will be times when, no matter how clearly you articulate your thoughts, no matter how earnestly you try to explain yourself, others will not see things from your perspective. Some people cannot understand, and some simply refuse to. This is where the art of silence becomes invaluable. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to prove a point or seeking validation from those unwilling to grant it, step back. As Marcus Aurelius said, you always have the option of having no opinion. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is say nothing at all. Words, when met with resistance, can inflame emotions, provoke unnecessary tension, and create conflict where none is needed. Instead of convincing, let your actions speak for you. Because in the end, it is not what you say, but what you do that defines you. The world today is full of noise, with people constantly defending themselves, explaining and debating, often over trivial matters. Social media has amplified this problem, turning every disagreement into a public spectacle, where people argue not to understand, but to win. What is Stoicism, if not the ability to master oneself, to control emotions rather than be controlled by them? A man who is secure in himself does not need the approval of others, nor does he waste time justifying himself to those unwilling to listen. A Stoic life lesson teaches us that true power lies in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. If understanding is impossible, silence is not a retreat, it is a statement of wisdom. It is the ability to disengage from unnecessary battles, to conserve energy for what truly matters, and to walk away with dignity intact. 5. When you lack knowledge on a subject. There is no greater mark of wisdom than knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, especially when it comes to subjects beyond your expertise. In a world where everyone seems to have an opinion on everything, where confidence often overshadows competence, the ability to admit what you do not know is a rare but powerful trait. Thomas Edison once said, "What we know is just a drop. What we do not know is an ocean." Yet too many people today ignore this truth, choosing instead to speak without substance, to argue without understanding, and to feign expertise rather than embrace humility. True intelligence is not about knowing everything. It is about recognizing the vastness of what remains unknown and having the self-discipline to stay silent where knowledge is lacking. The ancient Stoics believed that speech should be measured and meaningful. Epictetus taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. This is not an encouragement to remain ignorant, but rather a call to embrace learning with humility, to resist the temptation of speaking just to impress, and to focus on growth rather than appearances. In today's digital age, the need for silence in the face of ignorance is greater than ever. Social media has given everyone a platform, but not everyone has something valuable to say. Misinformation spreads rapidly, and many people contribute not because they are informed, but because they fear being left out of the conversation. But the Stoic happiness that comes from peace of mind is found in resisting this urge, in knowing that there is no shame in saying, "I don't know." In fact, it is the hallmark of wisdom. The greatest thinkers, scientists, philosophers, and leaders do not pretend to know everything. They remain students of life, always seeking knowledge rather than faking it. So ask yourself, do you speak to share genuine knowledge, or do you speak to be heard? Do you add value to conversations, or do you merely take up space? The answer determines not only how others perceive you, but also the depth of your own personal growth. A man who understands Stoicism today knows that silence is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. Speak confidently about what you know, stay silent about what you do not, and always be willing to learn. 6. When others boast or overstate. There is an old saying, empty vessels make the most noise. You've likely encountered people who constantly boast, exaggerate their achievements, or dominate conversations with stories that seem more about self-promotion than truth. These individuals speak not to share wisdom, but to seek validation, to be admired, to convince others and often themselves of their greatness. But have you ever noticed how the truly wise, the most accomplished, the ones who command the deepest respect, rarely feel the need to announce their success? They do not engage in the petty game of one-upmanship because they know that true strength, true confidence, and true wisdom are quiet. Wynne, Stoic, teaches us that a high-value man does not need to prove his worth with words. His actions speak for him. The more a person boasts, the more they reveal their insecurity. Look at the greatest leaders, thinkers, and warriors throughout history. Men who built legacies through discipline and action rather than empty words. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome at the time, wrote in his private journal, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That is the difference between those who seek recognition and those who live with purpose. A man of substance does not need to declare his greatness, he simply is. The question you must ask yourself is, do I want to be a man who speaks of success or a man who embodies it? The answer will determine whether you waste energy in pointless conversations or carry yourself with the quiet confidence of those who truly know. In life, this distinction is everywhere. You see it in the workplace, where the loudest voices are often the least competent, where the ones who truly get things done are too busy working to engage in self-praise. You see it in social circles, where men who constantly talk about their wealth, power, or influence are often the ones who have the least of it. And you see it online, where social media has become a stage for exaggeration, where people carefully curate a version of their lives designed to impress rather than reflect reality. But the high-value man is different. He understands that silence in the face of arrogance is not submission. It is wisdom. It is the choice to rise above ego-driven conversations and focus on what actually matters. When you encounter someone who boasts or overstates, resist the urge to challenge them, to prove them wrong, to match their energy with your own. Instead, remain silent, composed, unshaken. Your silence in these moments will say more than words ever could. Epictetus reminds us, if someone speaks badly of you, do not defend yourself against the accusations, but reply, "You obviously don't know me well, otherwise you would have spoken differently." This is the power of silence. It is an act of self-assurance, of knowing who you are without needing external approval. 7. When matters do not concern you. There is great wisdom in knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, especially when a matter does not concern you. In today's world, where curiosity often masquerades as involvement, it's easy to find oneself entangled in situations that have little to do with us. Yet, the more we interfere, the more we invite unnecessary complications. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, reminds us, "You always have the option of having no opinion." This simple yet profound truth is a foundation of wisdom. Not every conversation requires your input. Not every debate needs your stance, and not every conflict is yours to resolve. Speaking without necessity often leads to biased statements, unfair judgments, and the embarrassment of realizing too late that you spoke on matters you did not fully understand. In contrast, silence preserves dignity, clarity, and control. It allows you to observe rather than react, to think rather than assume, and to act only when it truly matters. In life tempts us to voice opinions on everything. Social media has conditioned people to believe they must have an immediate response to every trending topic, every political debate, and every social issue, regardless of how well informed they are. This constant urge to weigh in, to prove knowledge, or to appear engaged often results in reckless words and regretful statements. But what is Stoicism if not the practice of self-restraint? The Stoic life lesson here is simple. The wise man does not allow his peace to be disturbed by matters that do not affect his purpose. He understands that involvement for the sake of involvement is a fool's errand, and that speaking for the sake of being heard leads to trouble. Instead, he chooses silence where it is most powerful, listening more than he speaks, knowing that words should only be used when they serve a greater purpose. Think about the workplace, family dynamics, or even casual social settings. How many conflicts have escalated simply because someone inserted themselves where they weren't needed? How many relationships have soured because a careless remark spread beyond its intended audience? A high-value man recognizes that not every issue is his to fix, not every argument needs his defense, and not every problem needs his solution. He understands that silence can be an advantage, a way to maintain composure and avoid unnecessary entanglements. This is not an act of cowardice, but of discipline and control. Epictetus wisely said, "If someone speaks badly of you, do not defend yourself against the accusations, but reply, 'You obviously don't know me well, otherwise you would have spoken differently.'" The same applies when witnessing the drama of others. There is no need to rush to correct, to insert yourself, or to make assumptions based on half-truths. By stepping back, you allow yourself the luxury of clarity and the freedom of not being pulled into chaos. So the next time you feel the urge to comment on something that does not concern you, ask yourself, will my words bring value, or am I speaking out of impulse? Am I truly helping, or am I merely adding to the noise? The answer will guide you toward a choice that reflects wisdom and self-control. The greatest men in history were not those who spoke the most, but those who spoke with intention. The ability to hold one's tongue is a rare but powerful trait, one that separates those who are ruled by impulse from those who command respect. In a world filled with constant chatter, silence remains the mark of true strength. Choose your words wisely, and when in doubt, let silence be your shield. There is an undeniable power in silence, a wisdom that few truly master. Sun Tzu once said, "Silence, listening, remembering, action, and wisdom are 5 distinct levels of intellect." These are not merely stages of thinking, but fundamental principles for a meaningful life. Yet, in today's world, where speaking is often mistaken for intelligence, silence is undervalued. People rush to assert themselves in conversations, believing that speaking first or speaking the most equates to authority. But those who understand Stoicism today recognize that true strength lies not in filling the air with words, but in knowing when to hold them back. A Stoic mindset teaches that silence is not weakness. It is control, it is patience, it is the ability to listen rather than react, to observe rather than assume. A friend once shared with me a simple truth. People avoid silence because they fear it makes them look lesser, as if saying nothing means they have nothing to offer. This fear leads many to speak without purpose, filling conversations with noise instead of insight. I used to be that way, eager to voice my opinions in meetings, quick to pour out emotions in casual conversations, always feeling the need to be heard. But looking back, I see now that much of it was youthful arrogance, an attempt to prove something rather than contribute meaningfully. Stoic happiness is found in understanding that not every thought needs to be spoken, and not every moment needs to be filled with words. The question we should ask ourselves is, are we speaking to add value, or are we speaking to be noticed? Life teaches this lesson over time. As we grow older, we realize that our words, once carelessly thrown around, carry weight. Our hearts, once open and eager, become more guarded, more selective in who and what we engage with. Words can heal, but they can also wound. A casual remark can linger for years, and a single careless statement can change relationships. And while the young race forward, quick to express and discard, those with wisdom know that silence often says more than speech ever could. The art of knowing when to speak and when to stay silent is not just about self-control. It is about emotional intelligence, about recognizing that not all battles are worth fighting, and that sometimes the greatest impact is made by saying nothing at all. Life itself is like a puzzle, and trying to force pieces together in frustration only leads to more confusion. How often do we make the mistake of trying to control outcomes, of pushing too hard for answers, instead of allowing things to unfold naturally? When something does not fit, it is not a failure, it is a sign to wait, to reassess, to approach from a different angle. Those who persist, with patience and quiet confidence, will eventually see the picture come together. And when happiness does find you, there is no need to announce it loudly. True joy does not need validation. It is best shared quietly, felt deeply, and recognized by those who truly matter. As Seneca wisely said, "As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters." So rest assured, not every moment needs words, not every thought needs expression, and not every silence needs to be filled. Speak when it matters, listen when it's needed, and let your presence, not just your words, leave the lasting impression. Thank you for taking the time to be here, for listening, for reflecting, and for embracing the wisdom that silence has to offer. In a world that never stops talking, choosing silence is not just an art, it is a statement of strength, of wisdom, and of self-mastery. The ability to listen, to observe, and to speak only when necessary is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary, the impulsive from the intentional, the lost from the truly enlightened. As we walk through life, let's remember the words of Epictetus. "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Let's carry that lesson forward. If today's message resonated with you, if it made you pause, think, and reconsider the way you use your words, then I encourage you to take this practice beyond this moment. Let silence be your tool for clarity, your defense against chaos, and your way of moving through life with quiet confidence. And as you do, I hope you continue this journey of growth, wisdom, and inner peace. If you found value in this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights on Stoic mindset, Stoicism today, and how to master the art of a high-value life. Let's keep building strength, not just in words, but in presence. Until next time, stay disciplined, stay wise, and remember, true power often speaks the loudest through silence. Thank you, and see you soon.